Welcome, Binksers. Third time's a charm. We'll kick this off again. Today, we are introducing Eryk and Sarah from S.M.I.L.E. This is a webinar on a comprehensive approach to teen mental wellness. And we are really excited to talk to Smiles for Jake and smilesforjake.org representatives here about how they're tackling teen issues and suicide issues in mental health in this world. And first, I want to introduce Sarah. And Sarah, if you'd like to say a little bit of something about yourself and introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah. I have been with Smiles for Jake for almost 2 years now, but been with the nonprofit sector of life for darn near 50, no, more than 15 years already. But just excited to have a conversation today and really shed some light on what we're working on in the mental health space.
Very cool. And Eryk, let's get you
Hi,
on an
everyone.
introduction.
My name is Eryk Hopajoki, and I am the vice chair of the Smiles for Jake board of directors. Jake was also my son, and we have, from day one of starting this, there's been a lot of great people, and it's been with a lot of great purpose. And I say that as we know why we do it, and we were kind of just waiting to figure out the how. And some of the great things recently, we've really started to understand the how. So happy to be here. Thank you for having us.
That's fantastic. Fantastic. So your organization, can you give us a little bit of background about your organization, Eryk, and how you came to formulate it and what the kind of target purpose is?
Yeah. So in my background, I worked in technology for 25 years, made a lot of great connections, friends, people. And when things had happened with Jake passing away, I was also very heavily involved in the community. I mean, that's how I had met Sarah years ago on that end, through another service organization, and just meeting great people that want to do great things. Well, those same people, a lot of my family and friends pushed to create something, and we didn't know what it would be. I wanted nothing to do with it. They pushed and pulled, and Smiles for Jake took its initial stages. And again, none of us were mental health professionals, but we knew there was a need, and it had to be a bigger need, that we could maybe rally and include people, and a lot of people bought in, and it was for a cause. But again, what are we doing? And as we have evolved through the years, we've just done great things. Hired our first executive director with Sarah, and as we keep advocating for different pieces out there, we've done some really great things that have collected data. And as we all know, data is very, very powerful. It makes it real when we say, hey, here's what we're seeing out there. We have the data behind it to prove the need for it. And I look at kids or different things from Jake's side, that it's been a very spiritual or good thing for me as well to be drawn to that cause, because I don't want parents or anyone to have to go through that mental health side of things that we did. Life's hard enough as it is every day.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Sarah, when we began working, the Binks community, Healthtek began working with Smiles for Jake more recently. When you kind of came into the fold, how did your stepping into the organization evolve and happen? Eryk talked a little bit about how you met.
Yeah, so when Smiles for Jake came about, it was really a movement and it was a conversation around mental health that wasn't being had. We are from, I'll call small town America, and really understanding that we weren't having the conversation. And so, that, as Eryk touched on, the community came together. In the last couple of years, we've really said, hey, this conversation has sparked something, but it's also, where can we go from here on it? And so in the last 2 years, we've really been focusing on education, and we've learned that we cannot be everything to everyone. We like to focus on, youth 16 to 24, plus or minus a few years. So we're really focusing on youth, and that's something we can talk about today, about what our education platform looks like, but also resources. And that's really how we got connected with Healthtek, is said, what can we do more? And when we started seeing these opportunities for resources in the tech space, and be able to bring that to our community, we got excited about it, because we're all about how many tools can we get in the toolbox. There's not a one tool that's going to solve all of the problems. It's a combination of so many of them. And so we're really focused on educating and then bringing those resources to light and bringing those to the people that need them. So yeah, so that's really how we focused the last couple of years.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, and so tell us a little bit about that audience. And maybe Eryk, you can chime in too. And fans and Binksters, we invite you to kind of place your comments. We're looking at them. We're going to respond to them. But why that target? Why that focus on this age group? We spoke a short while ago with another organization, Livin, that you're familiar with as well, that's targeting a
Mhm.
different kind of area and interest. And so, how did you? Why was this an important group and area for you guys to speak to and about?
I think it's really looking at our community and looking at the numbers. Um, when you look at suicide is the second highest rate for 10 to 14-year olds. And with the loss that we've had in our community, how can we do upstream approach and start the conversation to normalize, get rid of that stigma early on? So our education platform is a three-pronged approach. So what we do is we tailor almost each one of our sessions. In our session, you can see from the title of this as SMILE, which for us stands for supporting, mentoring, and inspiring life in everyone. And our three-prong approach really includes we do sessions for teens, for youth. We'll go as young as fifth grade. With our current one, it's very age appropriate and built for each audience. But we also bring it to teachers and bus drivers and have that a tailored conversation of how to talk to the kids in your classroom or on your bus. And then the third thing we do is we bring it into businesses. So we bring this education into businesses because that's where, especially we go into manufacturing or places where maybe 18 to 24-year-olds are already working, but also the parents. Really, it's a whole approach to work together so that everybody is getting the same resources and education and knowing how to talk to one another.
Yeah, it definitely seems like you're really wrapping it around in a circle of that educational life in those early years. And do you see and feel that's the impactful time to spread your message, to get that information out there and into discussion?
I think so. I think that, as we stated, we are not the mental health professionals. And for those out there listening, we don't have to be mental health professionals to have empathy and to have a conversation.
Yeah,
But we need to know what to say and what not to say, right? And so that's where we come in. Eryk and I have this conversation a lot where we're kind of that bridge, or that bridge to get people to the help that they need. And we go to as many resources as we can to do that.
very cool.
I think that teenage demographic has really bought in. I think that it hit home for a lot of them. Um, a lot of them that were around that same age as Jake, whether they knew Jake or whether they're in a different city. I just think that we all can remember as that teenager sometimes how hard it is growing up just normally, and you throw in the things of social media or cell phones or just a lot of the instant gratification type things that are there. Those can be a double-edged sword. And I always use the analogy too that it's very important that we take care of that age group. And I use the video game analogy. Life isn't a video game, and I think sometimes kids get caught in that world of video games where growing up maybe it was Ms. Pac-Man when I played and I got 3 lives. You don't get 3 lives, you get one. And I think that it also goes into the importance of engaging with kids, whether they're your kids or not. If something isn't there, it's easy to listen and just be kind and ask questions.
Absolutely, absolutely. And now, what does some of what you do that I think is unique. Not a lot of organizations do this. Is actually physically going out to those schools and having programs in face to face. I know a lot of nonprofits we interact with and we work with, they're doing a lot of digital work, and it is wonderful. We love the games, we love the digital stuff. But I love that you guys are out in classes. And how does that look? How would a community interact with Smiles, or do something similar to Smiles in their classroom? What would that look like?
So what that looks like is a couple different ways. So what we do is we have a platform, Smile Advocate Sessions. And so we can tailor them to 45 minutes or an hour. We go into a classroom. The teacher will sit in the back. It's almost like they get this hour where, a sub is coming in, but we're actually there just to have a conversation. And we bring in our slide deck. But the first thing that we do with students is everyone gets a gratitude journal. And the very first page tells you how to write in a gratitude journal. So the first thing that we do is we just say, hey, you have a journal there. This is yours to keep. We want this is personal to you. Write what you want. But the first thing I'm going to ask you to do is write down 3 things you're grateful for today. And then I actually will do a stopwatch. And then I'll stop it when the last kid puts their head up. And it's interesting. I'll be like, okay, usually it's around 20 seconds. And then I ask them, do you have 20 seconds in your day? And you always get the smart ones that say, nope, I don't. And then we'll go to, well, let's look at your settings on your phone and let's see how much screen time we've had. And then we say, could we replace 20 seconds of that with this gratitude? Um, and just starting it off like that, we're showing them that if you can do something as simple as take 30 seconds for yourself to think about 3 things you're grateful for, do it for 21 days straight, and you're going to have a pattern, and you do this every day, your mindset can really shift. Um, and so we're not trying to simplify it too much, but we're also trying to show simple tricks and tips that can be done on a daily basis, if that
Mhm.
makes sense. Um, and that really just kind of sets the tone for the conversation. And then we go into the conversation of what Smiles for Jake is, and the spreading positivity, and our mission of really believing that every person is valued, loved, and important, and how we treat one another is reflective of that, and that we need to remember that. And we don't have to be friends to respect one another and treat everyone like that. And then we do some storytelling where we really bring in stories about, we've brought on national keynote speakers like Kevin Hines. And Kevin Hines is somebody who tried to take his life when he was 19 by jumping off the Golden Gate Bridge. And we reflect on his story and talk about how that day he just wanted people to ask him, are you okay? And he was a grown man crying, asking for people to ask him if he was okay, and nobody did. So we share that story and we do some reflection of, when's the last time that you've asked somebody if they're okay? When's the last time you've done somebody kind for somebody? And vice versa, and being there. And then the conversation really goes into, and I think we have it on a slide deck, but we have like a mental health scale that we really talk about, where we want everyone to be at a 0, 1, 2, which is very mentally healthy and um, resilient and doing
Mhm.
all the things. And then, but
I'll
we
actually
need to,
switch over to the deck so that we can get a look at it.
yeah,
Let me find that now, and I think this is what
yeah, right
we're
there.
talking about. Yeah. Hmm.
Yep. So we bring this into all of our presentations, and if you look at the conversation that we like to have is, that I hope if people watching can understand, but have you ever taken driver's ed? And I asked that question, and everyone's like, well, yeah. And I'm like, well, why do we take driver's ed? So that we can remain safe on the road and keep others safe. So we look at this mental wellness scale and we say, we are having this conversation because we want everyone to be a 0, 1, 2, 3, but we need to recognize and understand what to do if somebody is not safe and into that 8, 9, and 10. What do we do? Who do we call? Um, we talk about, we've got Hope, from Healthtek, and having those guided conversations, that those could be great to have, and using mindful wellness tools. And it really just sparks the conversation. But it's not just about having the conversation, it's about providing those valuable resources when we leave the classroom or the business that people can refer back to once we're gone.
Well, that's that's all, and I love that again. I know I focus a lot. I've got two daughters that are now grown, and I think about their young years and those messages that I was able to get in before they went off to have their own perspectives on lives, and I just love that that's an area you guys focus in on, and maybe we can transition a little talking about tech because you as you were saying in your presentation, you asked the kids to whip out their phones and look at their phones. You're kind of incorporating tech. Earlier, I was saying how much I love that you step into the space and you're there, and you're as one of our commenters would say, IRL interaction. It is. Thank you, Bloody, by the way. Um, it's this human reinforcement. At Binks, we have a our golden rule is to be kind, which dovetails brilliantly with what you're talking about. Is how that just sets it, and then you reinforce it with a face to face. How do you how are you stepping into technology? Why, I should say, are you stepping into technology, and does that support your IRL interactions?
I would say, and Eryk, jump in at any time, but they're a blessing and they're a curse with teens, in my opinion. And so to bring in the technology is we need to come to the teenagers where they're at. We need to meet them where they're at. Face to face, sitting in a room together is always best, but it's not always possible either. And so when we can bring in different technologies to support them, we need to do that. We need to give them opportunities to remain anonymous and feel safe having a conversation. We need to meet them where they're at and come together. And this is why hope and this technology has been so amazing and life changing, in my opinion, for many people, because they can go to where they feel is a safe place, and it's a known place. I mean, for me, it's not as though I would rather actually use my phone to call somebody, but we have to understand that our teens and our youth, they know they like that screen, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, and we can talk. I'm going to switch back to the deck. You guys have a deck slide about living with smiles, which is something that you guys
Mhm.
launched late last year.
Yeah.
Spoke with a group recently, and to kind of follow on your metaphor, they were talking about these technologies as being bridges
Mhm.
between the people in need and the services, and kind of bringing them closer together. And it sounds like you guys are doing the same thing. You show up in person, and then you tie in the technology as a bridge to what can be next or what needs to be next. So
Mhm.
tell us a little bit about your Living with Smiles.
So Living with Smiles is just over a year old, and for our geographic area has been incredible because people are able to have a conversation with Hope you can see on the screen. She takes your hand and walks with you. But it's more than just a chat. But you can see by the numbers, the thing we like to talk to, the point we like to talk to about the most is those that are going to get help now. 988 is the mental health crisis line nationwide that is saving lives. And the fact that we are able to have a technology that we can bring to people that they can connect with 988 through the conversation they're having with a bot. Again, they also have that peer to peer support, which is best, but it's supporting one another and bringing it to where they need to be. And we like to say that we don't know for sure, but we're changing and saving lives.
Absolutely. Yeah. And 988 launched here in California, I think the beginning of 23. And I remember there was a report that came out afterwards where they were saying, when the phone calls for support didn't go up, but the text messages that were going out there went up 700, 800% of interaction. And that differential in communication, that many paths lead to to smiles, right? Many paths lead to that kind of well of kindness. I think that's a thing I really want to compliment you both on, and stepping into and stepping up with is, again, being that physical space and making that connection. I love that you guys start at the bus driver and go
Yeah.
through and exist in the school and carry it through to the parent. That kind of circle of health is really something that means a lot. I think will mean a lot in the years to come as well. Now,
Well, and
oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
oh no, Jan, I was gonna say from the bus driver perspective, one of the things that when you can see the bus drivers interact and you think about it, that's the person that sees your child or that young student first person of the day that they see, and it's one of the last people they might see besides their family. And everyone that grew up maybe on a bus, whether it was both ways, one way, sometimes the bus is an interesting place as a young person or anything else too. But then you throw in all the mental health stuff that all of a sudden starts affecting it, and you got one bus driver and you got 40 kids. And
Hmm.
so how can
Hmm.
we empower them to give them tools to help do that and still keep our kids safe and do all the things that they're supposed to do on that end, as it
Hmm.
comes along. Um, the other thing I would say is that when we talk about the data, when you guys talk about 988 and the things that we've done with Hope, Sarah had me speak to a group that had donated some money to us because they wanted to get an update. And I can talk about Smiles for Jake, I can talk about mental health, but I was running maybe from like raw emotion, which is my passion and everything because of that. But when you interject the data and make it real, you can watch people's body
Hmm.
language. When you start saying the number of calls that were connected to 988 or the number of interactions that were unique, people are looking, and that's real. And you're sharing that with them. And that's the issue that we have. Or it kind of works both ways. It's kudos to you, Smiles for Jake, for doing all those great
Right.
things, but it also lets people know we have a lot more work to do and we're all in this together. And I think that data again makes it really real, and you see how important it is.
And no, absolutely. I think that there's that proof of utilization, right? There's, as much as there
Mm-hmm.
are those of us who live in, or try to live in empathy, right, in our hearts. There's a lot of us who want to see results, want to see action, want to see numbers, and it's kind of the same thing with the texting and being in many different places for people to come to you. The utilization of and be able to reach out to people who think analytically or think through the numbers or think through the utilization. I think that's fantastic how you're putting that together. I think that's a great actual segue into, let's get back to how you do things at Smiles. You have this wonderful slide that kind of breaks down educational approach, resources, and then how you respond. Can you step me through what we're looking at here and for our audience?
Yeah, so as we've talked about it, our Smile education platform, supporting, mentoring, inspiring life in everyone. We bring that to businesses as we talked about. We'll also do some public sessions, both online and in person in our community. We do our high school classes. You'll see on there that it says kindergarten through 12th grade. So we firmly believe better together, which if anyone was watching the Live In Connected, we're proud partners with Live In, and really coined that together. Um, but that is something that we actually are working with another nonprofit in Minnesota where they already have the curriculum. So we're just helping bring that into the classrooms, which is a little bit different than our Smile education. That is 15 um, modules that they can do over 15 days or 15 weeks. They're about an hour each. But
If,
then
if
we,
I can If I can pause one
yeah,
second. Again, I love that you end with the bullet point of teachers and bus drivers.
yeah.
What is
So
CEU? What is CEU for
yes.
our listeners?
So a CEU is a continuing education unit.
Gotcha.
So our state requires that teachers and bus drivers have to have an hour of training in mental health and suicide prevention. Last I checked, unfortunately, it's only an hour about every 5 years. But the schools around here have been very good about doing at least an hour every year. So we have got somebody on our board of director who is still licensed, and so we can offer that hour of CEU that teachers need. Um, and really, schools love that because then they're more apt to bring us in when they have to make decisions on, well, we've only got an hour and we've got four different things we want to see. This being able to offer that continuing education unit really helps. If that
Well,
makes sense.
yeah, absolutely. And I want to dive a little before you step in the resources that you guys
Yeah.
work with. You mentioned rural schools, and I
Mhm.
know that you and I have talked about this a little bit in the past, where that's kind of a focus for where you're going. And why is that a focus? Why is that a passion for you guys?
I think it's because that is what our area is. I actually sit on a school board of a school that has about 1,300 students. That is 1,300 kindergarten through 12th grade in one building. And that's very common in our region.
Mhm.
Um, Eryk helped me out. Our biggest school district, the Brainerd one, averages about how many per grade?
Brainerd's size is probably between 550 and 600 now
Wow.
Yep.
in
So
each class.
that's the biggest, yeah, and that's the biggest school I would say in legitimately the central Minnesota, like 5 county region. So because of it's our geography, like yeah, it's our geography and it's how. So we need to focus on what we have in our backyard, and
Yeah. Yeah.
that's why we take the routes that we do.
No, very wonderful. And that's a good kind of segue into the resources that you guys work with. I know that just from a Diddy, I come in and sit in a more urban space where I think we have that many kids, 1,300 kids who graduated from the high school in one year at one level. So we as parents in
That's
these
so foreign
spaces,
to me.
yeah, well, and we in these spaces tend to kind of perceive of the grass is greener in the rural areas where these are issues you guys don't have, you don't struggle with, and so
Absolutely.
it's nice to hear. I mean, it's nice to hear. It's nice to hear we're all kind of working with the same issues, the similar issues, and these are programs that can kind of fit into urban and suburban areas as well, or rural
Yeah.
areas as well. So.
Well, and to your point, the data actually shows that rural areas, the per capita suicide rates can be higher in our area.
I'll be
And
damned.
a lot of that we feel is because of social isolation, um,
Mm.
being further apart from each other. And
Hmm.
so, really, I mean, that brings us into resource development. When we talk to livingwithsmiles.com, um, people being able to actually access that. So we're actually working with a school right now to make sure that livingwithsmiles.com is right on the desktop of the school issued Chromebook because there's a lot of kids in our area that is their only technology that they have. And so again, it's how do we bring it to them? And I think that's really beautiful that we're able to do that in our area and that there is a tech out there that as long as they can find a hotspot somewhere, they'll be able to get to it, if
Hmm.
that makes
Hmm.
sense.
Absolutely, find that
So,
bridge, and then what kind of services do you direct to when they have found that avenue, that channel?
yep. So really, what we're really trying to do is we're just trying to get the icon of livingwithsmiles.com on there, so that they know that there is mindfulness apps. There's a way to connect with that peer-to-peer support. Just really having that starting point of where to find resources, and then being
Hmm.
able to
Hmm.
have the resources at their fingertips.
Oh, and
Yeah.
is that concept that kind of opens up the whole fact that there. there's more on these devices than just the wonderful games that we Binksers do enjoy.
Or the
there's
school.
there's there's a whole segment of opportunity and service that can be found out there. Yeah, no,
Correct.
that makes
Correct.
sense.
Yep.
That makes sense. That-
100%.
yeah. Now the last piece you talk about is responding and some of the fund approaches that you offer. Let's talk. Tell me a little bit about that.
I'm gonna let Eryk run with this one.
Eryk, it's all you, brother.
Well, you're talking about the funding mechanism?
The
Yeah, this
response
was an
part.
interesting point, and I think it's something that's unique to you guys. I haven't seen that in this field and in nonprofits as well, where you offer an additional kind of leveling of support.
Yeah, I'm going to try to pull this up because my I can't see the Twitch. Um, if you're pulling it up on the sheet
Oh,
that that's saying, I'm
I'll
just kind
jump
of
back to it. I'll jump back to it. There we go. Sorry to put you on the spot there.
no, you're all right. I'm just going to try to pull it. So you're talking again, Sarah. Start me out on the funding side
Yep. So we're
because I might
talking
be thinking of
about
a different than I'm going to add in. You, if you would
yep.
start
So
there.
Smiles for Jake is primarily about prevention. However, we do unfortunately know that suicides happen. And so this is where we can come in due to the immediate time frame after a loss.
Mm,
So one of the things that I'll give you an example that Sarah and I and the board and we had kind of worked through was immediately when there's a loss, uh, any form of life, there's emotion, but there's also surrounding of where it happened. And I can use the example of Jake passing away. He didn't pass away at our house, but that's where the majority of things initiated. And depending on the person, it's tough because when things are done, somebody passes away or somebody's sick, you're going back to that same place. And I say that genuinely that my house is, I mean, I lived there 18 wonderful, awesome years, and that's your safe place. And now it's not. Is it safe? Are you going to make the right decisions? Is somebody at risk? Can you go somewhere in the short term so that you can take a breath and just be in that place that you don't have to relive it for that moment? Doesn't mean you're not going back there. Things. So we did a short term scenario where we were getting some funding together. So when that happens, we can put somebody up at local hotel or motels, people that are willing to
mm,
work with us
mm.
so that they have a safe place to go so they can make those decisions. Because a lot of times after a death, I mean, suicide, of course, being extreme on that, and sometimes people make knee-jerk reactions and things that maybe this puts you in an environment where you can at least try to take care of yourself and make those tough decisions and things you have to go through during that time. And I think that it allows people that because you go right back into the house. That's a tough spot to be in. I say that as
Yeah,
someone who
no,
was there.
that's
So
brilliant, and it makes it's one of these things in life that's so logical, to give space, and yet I can absolutely see how we wouldn't do it, right? It just you want to hug and you want to pull somebody into you as opposed to creating a space where they can be and just be. I think that's beautiful. We have a question
well, and
from
I think
Mark. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. I want to keep going on this.
no, I
Yeah.
was just going to say I think that one of the other things that we've done. I mean, we do some events and things, but it's not so much like the events. It's about including people because communities or societies that had a higher level of inclusion that people feel a part of things are happier. They,
Mm,
they have
mm,
ways to collaborate with friends or resources or family, but they feel a part of it. They don't feel isolated. And that's going back to that same point that you and Sarah were speaking about is that social isolation. When you include people, those communities have a tendency to be, and again, not that happiness is everything, but the alternative isn't an option. And again, that's where those are the great things that we can do with some of that to take that edge or isolation off.
that's beautiful. That's beautiful. So I want to turn over to a question. We have Mark O. Sis in here that would like to say, what are some of the early warning signs that parents or teachers should keep an eye out for when it comes to mental health challenges in teens? And there's a quick follow-up. It says, I ask because my brother died recently and left behind a young son. I'm sorry to hear that, Mark, and I'm glad you're here with us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, the first thing, very sorry for your loss, Mark. Um, One thing that we talk about is things to look for. The number one thing that I tell people is a change in behavior. So you might have somebody who is very outgoing, and all of a sudden they're not talking. And is it, and yes, we're going to have bad days, but consistently their behavior has really changed. Um, and vice versa. You might have an introverted person who all of a sudden they're talking a lot. The other thing is that they just they're isolating themselves. They're pulling away, or other things to look for would also be that they're not willing to talk to anybody. These are different points that we talk about. We do reference this different sites, the makeitook.com site that has a very extensive list. One other thing would be that if they're giving away some of their like prized possessions, like all of a sudden they're giving away something that means a lot to them, they're giving it away for a reason, and just start questioning that. I would just say keep talking and keep having a conversation, and um, don't turn a back on anybody. And I don't know if Eryk, if you want to expand on
Yeah,
that at
no, I
all.
could. And Mark, I'm very sorry to hear about things as well. Some real core ones I would tell you is hygiene. So if you haven't been around someone, or even if you have, you're going to notice a change in hygiene. Are they showering? Are they taking care of themselves? And I say that as an adult or a kid. And that's the truth. You will, it's one thing if somebody's maybe camping for a weekend or things, but it's during the week or they're at school. And those are signs, warning signs. How are they dressing? Are they dressing the same way they were? Does it look raggy? How's their appearance? I mean, there's things that if you're around someone, you're going to know that something isn't right. All it is a question. How are you? Or that type of um, lead in on it is a big one. Or somebody that they act very, very anxiety driven on a reaction, or they overreact on something. Again, we all have our good days and bad, but you're going to start to see habits that there's a concern. And that's where it just takes a simple, conversation, or to try to get it somewhere where at least you know that you're trying to do what you can for them.
I'm I'm
So I'll leave it
struck
as that.
by I'm struck by Sarah, you're calling out the high as well. So my wife lives with and lives very well with bipolarism. And so we go through issues of manic and then depressive kind of swings sometimes. It seems intuitive to me, as you're both talking about it, that the low is when you would see this in somebody, or fear this in somebody. But how do you see it in the high? I've never kind of conceptualized that. I love that you bring that up.
It's that change of behavior.
It's the change
It's just,
itself. Gotcha.
yeah, it's the
Yeah.
change in the behavior that like Eryk was saying, if you're around people and all of a sudden it's almost like something will come out of somebody's mouth and you'll look at them like, I've known you my whole life, but who are you right now? That change, if that
Hmm.
makes sense.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
and that's always, we talk about it a lot, that not only the person that might be the more obvious in need, you're right. There's the opposite ones, and that's where I would have put myself in for a thing, because I'm going to do everything I can do to distract myself from taking care of the problem. I'm going to take care of everybody else, and I'm going to be that outgoing person, and I'm doing it because I'm masking my issues.
Mm,
And
mm,
the biggest way I would tell you to talk to those people or just ask questions is just engage in more conversation. When they make comments or they're doing things, ask them questions about it. And I would tell you that somebody who is doing it just to give that appearance, and maybe more of a shell, when you start asking them questions, you're going to know were they just trying to BS somebody, through
hmm
that way. And I just
hmm
think engaging are big things too, because your instincts don't lie when it comes to it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's where that how are you doing question is a great kind of icebreaker that I think you guys were talking about. That how are you doing question. Mark says, thanks for that. It really helps to clear things up and gave a better idea of what to look for. I appreciate your time on explaining that. Thank you,
Well, and
Mark.
I would say that, how are you doing? What's the answer that most of the world says? Fine. Okay. Now you have a choice when someone says that. If you're, depending on things, you don't have to nail it. But a lot of times, again, I say push back and ask a question. What does fine mean? In a good
Hmm.
way. Like, hey, well, what does fine mean? What's going on in your life? And that's where you take it a step further. And that's when you put that question back on them, depending on how they ask, because they're going to be like, oh crap, they're actually calling me out. It's just going to flush out some either really
Right.
good or bad things that could be there. And that's where I say it's easy to say, okay, great. What does fine mean, or what does okay mean? And I think it's a huge thing. It's another huge
That
step to just keep asking.
that open-ended questioning, right? That open-ended. I think the openness of it quite literally shows that you care, and that's a yeah. That's I. But I recall watching my wife go through her ebbs and flows, and it just doesn't hit you in the moment, right? It doesn't see you go right to emotion, whether it's anger or pity or sadness. You go right to the emotion, and so it's great that you guys are reinforcing and helping to us have language to kind of step into these spaces and these interactions. I love that.
Well, and I think that if we look through the years, sometimes, and maybe it's more me, but it is sometimes people think, well, isn't that kind of basic? Well, you know what? Sometimes we all got to be reminded of the core things that were able to get us here as things, and it's all right to be grateful and be involved in those, because it's all positivity when you're looking at it from that side, and it all adds up. We don't want to take it for granted, because that's sometimes where people assume, and it goes into that whole revolving circle of things.
I agree. I agree. Now, you guys also step into a concept of a pledge. What is this about? Can you tell me what this is? And I'll bring up that deck slide. I'm very curious about it, given what we're talking about emoting and giving words, right?
So it's very interesting. So we have added this pledge that I think I have it on the next slide.
I
Did
can
I
go
put
there.
it in there? Yeah.
Hmm.
So it's interesting. We have added this pledge that at every session, and we actually had a review session with our board of directors just a couple weeks ago, and I even had them do it. Stand up and take the pledge. And literally, I asked people to pledge to spread kindness, offer help when I need someone in need, and empower others through positive acts and words. And again, it seems simple, but if you genuinely look at the words and you definitely pledge to spread that kindness, offer help to someone in need, and empower others through positive acts and words, imagine how good this world could be. And it's when we ask everyone to do that and to look at that, and then sometimes these classrooms, they'll put it up in their classroom or they'll put it up at their business. It's just that reminder that we're here to look out for one another, look out for ourselves, and then look out for everyone else, in that spreading kindness and joy.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Now, I'm actually going to slip back to the deck real quick here because one of the
Mhm.
slides that you guys shared with me, I think is it kind of hit me. Try not to get verklempt here, but it kind of hit me, and I want to hear from you why you put it in there, why you share it with the community, what this means to you.
Have the courage to be. So, in our Smile Advocate sessions, we like to tell real life stories. And do you want me to give you the 2 minute answer or the 5 minute answer? Because I could go
Let's go
either
with
way
five
with it.
minutes. We've got time. We've got time, and I want
Yeah,
to
we've got
I want to
time.
hear it. Yeah.
Okay. So we have got, when we go into these Smile Advocate sessions, we have a member on our team. His name is Mike. And in the last couple of years, Mike unfortunately lost his wife to cancer. It'll be 2 years in March. And as a result of that, he has pivoted his life into what he's doing for a profession. And one of those is he is traveling around the country as he's honing in his keynotes because he's writing a book. And a while back, he was down in Texas for one of these conferences, and he had been traveling a lot. And so he was in San Antonio. And one thing that he does when he's traveling is he goes and he does his laundry. And he does his laundry really the closest place he can find. And one time he was doing his laundry, and what he will tell you, everyone called him the white preppy boy because he just didn't fit in with where he was at. And while he was there was a lady who was visibly struggling, and she was on the phone. And what she was saying is, I told you I cannot be there at 11. I will be there at 1. No, you're not listening. I cannot be there at 11. I can be there at 1. And my kids will not look homeless. I will be there when I get there. And she hung up the phone. And Mike went up to her and said, Ma'am, I hear that you need to be in 2 places at once. I am sitting here, I'm writing. Can I do something to help you? And can I do your laundry so that you can go be where you need to be? And she looked at him and went back and said, why would you do that? Why would you do that? He said, I'm here. I have the time. You have someplace to be. I have nowhere to be. I'm doing my laundry. Um, Prior to that, she was going around the laundromat and she had a bag of like nickels and dimes, and she was trying to make change into quarters so that she could do the laundry. So he even took it a step further and said, if you don't mind, I will even pay for it. I will do this for you. Reluctantly, after taking a picture of his driver's license, she agreed to it. And when she drove away, he kind of noticed she was in a decent car and drove away. And he's like, not my business. While she was gone, a couple things happened. He did the laundry, and he had noticed that he did laundry for two young kids, a boy and a girl. And everyone in the laundromat noticed what happened. And not one person came up to him and asked him for help, but rather they said, I've only got a little bit to give, but when she gets back, can you give her these quarters? Can you give her this money? And then they all pitched in, and he went and got laundry detergent for her the next time she had to do laundry as well. And when she got back, he said, Ma'am, here's the laundry. It is folded. There, your boy and your girl. And then he goes, do you mind if I ask you a couple questions? And she's like, okay. And asked, the first question was, I noticed I did laundry for your kids, but I didn't do yours. And she's like, oh no, you ain't touching my clothes. So, and the other question said, and it's not my business and you don't have to answer, but may I ask where you went? And she said, yes, I went to social services to make sure that my children are taken care of. And she let him know that she had been a nurse and that she made some bad decisions and got caught up with pharmaceuticals and got caught. And so therefore she lost her job and her means to provide for her children. And in that moment, he said, okay. And he handed her the money. He goes, well, everyone ponied up and gave you this. And that's when she lost it and said, I don't know where you came from or why you did, but I know my kids will now be taken care of. Thank you for having the courage to be kind. Because in today's world, unfortunately, it takes courage to be kind. So Mike does a better job sharing this story, but we share this story with people who come to our Smile Advocate sessions because we now are raising youth in a world where unfortunately sometimes it takes more courage to be kind than it does to look away or walk away. And it's important to have the courage to be kind.
I'll just let that sink in. Because it's a beautiful way to kind of wrap up our discussion and thank you guys for sharing today. I really, really do appreciate that. Thank you, Binksters, for coming out and being here with us today. And we love you all. Is there anything in closing that Sarah and Eryk, you guys would like to share with the community?
Um, I would just tell anyone that, you know, kindness is free. And one little bit of kindness, if you gave one extra bit of kindness a day to someone, especially a stranger, whether it's holding a door and being genuinely grateful and saying, yeah, you're welcome. I will tell you, it can change a direction in your day, but you have no idea how it may have just changed that person's day. And if we all paid it forward, they're huge strides, because we all want to live our life with our family or do the things that we enjoy. And it's sometimes life's hard enough. So I say thank you for your time. We're very appreciative.
Awesome.
Yeah,
And thank
I
you.
just
Go ahead,
I'll
Sarah. Sorry.
second that. Thank you for having us, and um, have the courage to be kind and keep passing it forward, pay it forward.
Pay it forward. Absolutely. And for all of our friends who are looking to get in contact with Smiles and Jake, we have their website here on the platform, smileswithjake.org. And you can go and check out Hope, their interactive tool sets, and learn even more about them and how they move in this world. Thank you for being with us today, and have a wonderful week. All right.